I don't often cover horror series. Focusing on movies is enough for me. Reading as much comics as I can is going above and beyond. You can't expect me to keep up on all of the streaming and TV series as well. Still, I do love a serial yarn, and occasionally I binge a series or two. Here are some of my favorite horror series on streaming and TV that I caught this year. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Before I begin, I think I'm going to answer a few questions a lot of folks might have about this list. What about Servant? The second season was rough. Had I done this list for the previous year, I'd probably be all over it. What about CREEPSHOW? That series continues to entertain, but the story really deters from the quality of a potentially good show. I'm frustrated at more episodes than love them, though there are the random great episodes, usually not done by showrunner Greg Nicotero, unfortunately. Hellbound? Haven't seen it yet, but I hear good things and I'm dying to see it. Where's Dexter? Don't have Showtime, but I plan on getting it and watching it very soon. How about Slasher? I need to catch up on this series. I hear good things, but I heard this season is a step down in quality. Midnight Mass? More like Midnight Monologue, am I right? Walking Dead? Keep walking. American Horror Story? Please. Now that those questions have been answered, here's my list of favorite horror on TV and streaming in order of release, not preference. 30 Coins is on HBO. It premiered January 4th, 2021. I've talked about this series before in my October countdown, but it's not a bad idea to mention it again, as it's about a cult attempting to gather 30 coins given to Judas to betray Jesus and the small Spanish villa at the center of it all. This series has a trio of damaged heroes trying to keep their lives together while battling religious cults, spider monsters, mirror worlds, doppelgangers, and bloody sheepheads. Showrunner Alex de la Iglesia is one of the boldest international genre filmmakers out there. Anyone who has seen his tour de force films like The Last Circus, Witching and Bitching, Perdita Durango, and Day of the Beast know that de Iglesia loves to inundate the viewer with one batshit lunatic idea after another, and this series follows that trend. Expect characters worth obsessing over, especially the electrifying Megan Montaner, hubba hubba, twisted monsters, and blood-soaked suspense in pretty much every episode of this excellent series. Calls is streaming on Apple Plus. It premiered March 9th, 2021. Evil Dead and Don't Breathe's Fede Alvarez assembles an astounding voice cast, allowing the viewer to drop into increasingly desperate conversations. Most of these conversations start out pretty normal, but by the end of each pulse-pounding episode, you're going to be on the edge of your ass and screaming at the screen. The concept of simply showing the voice tones against a colored screen is brilliant, as it proves that the less you see, the more horror your mind fills in with the worst of nightmares. With talented actors like Mark Duplass, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Aubrey Plaza, Judy Greer, just to name a few, this series is not for the faint of heart, but excellent entertainment for those who love suspense in its purest form. Them Covenant was streaming on Amazon Prime. It premiered April 8th, 2021. Here's another series that was so good it showed up in my October countdown for the best of the year. A black family moves to a new all-white neighborhood in California after experiencing an extremely harrowing personal tragedy. This is supposed to be a new start, but old prejudices and inner demons are around every corner. Every dim-witted and ham-fisted move Lovecraft Country takes are avoided in this excellently crafted, absolutely horrifying, and wonderfully bingeable dissection of what it's like to be black in the American 1950s. Each member of the Emery family have a secret and an inner demon haunting them. Each of them confront those demons in the series that excellently depicts horrors real and supernatural in nuanced ways that chill the soul. The Cat in the Bag episode remains one of the most excruciating episodes I've ever seen in any TV series. Black Summer Season 2 is streaming on Netflix. It premiered June 17th, 2021. While I was slow to get into the first season, the non-stop pace and focus on action over moping and crying makes Black Summer so much more superior to The Walking Dead. You care about these characters racing from these fast zombies because you spend time with them going through a true gauntlet of horrors, not because they're sitting and moping and monologuing about how horrible life is or how life is worth fighting for. Sure, there are some slow episodes occasionally, but for the most part, I'm usually out of breath by the time each episode ends, especially in the second season, where what's left of our cast moves northward. Adding bitter cold and deep snow makes running from these zombies all the more terrifying. And the levels of brutality the characters achieve and must endure shears the soul and makes for gripping zombie television. Wellington Paranormal is streaming on HBO Max. It premiered July 11th, 2021. While the comedy is often dry and even downright subtle at times, Wellington Paranormal, from the same producers as What We Do in the Shadows, is my kind of series. Every episode is set up like an episode of The X-Files, but the ridiculous banter between the two leads and the matter-of-factly way they encounter the oddball monstrosity of the week make for an amazing mix of horror and comedy. I also love it that they cross over with What We Do in the Shadows ever so subtly in one of the latter episodes. My favorite episode, Cop Circles, where the cops investigate a cow in a tree and end up thwarting an alien invasion, is a must-see. This twist on signs and the ludicrous look of the aliens is classic. I know these have been released in New Zealand before, and HBO is repackaging the best ones for their network, but every episode I've seen so far is gold. Brand new Cherry Flavor is streaming on Netflix. It premiered August 13th, 2021. 90s Hollywood is the backdrop for a perverse and gritty story of a starry-eyed director named Lisa Nova, played by Rosa Salazar, whose short film is optioned by a sleazy filmmaker who has seen better days, named Lou, played by Eric Lang, and then stolen right out from under her. Full of piss and vinegar, Lisa wants revenge and goes to a local witch to get it. The witch named Boro, played by Kathleen Keener, grants Lisa her wish, but of course there's a price. Much cat vomiting, strange sex, hallucinogenic drugs, and cold-blooded murder is the result. This is a twisted little pretzel from the mind of Nick Antikoska, who was responsible for Antlers and Channel Zero. Here he touches upon the Weinstein era of Hollywood where flesh and soul are bartered for fame. But this is all about Salazar, who makes every arduous episode utterly watchable. I love her bugged-out, drugged-out eyes and the tough-as-nails way she fights for what's hers. It gives you a quest worth latching onto. But man, this one has some gross original effects that you'll never forget. Did I mention the cat vomiting? What We Do in the Shadows, Season 3, is streaming on FX. It premiered September 2nd, 2021. Honestly, I was worried the folks behind What We Do in the Shadows wouldn't be able to stretch the concept to a third season, but the cast gels so perfectly that I shouldn't have gotten my dander up. Seeing these vampires bicker, fight, fuck, and of course drain blood from their victims has never been more fun. This season had the gang leaving the mansion and going to Vegas. They also moved the story forward by having the group take over the Vampire Council, and the addition of Kristen Schaal to the cast as their guide through their new responsibilities works marvelously. I love seeing Guillermo, Harvey Gillen, develop more resentment to his masters and gaining a little teeth himself as he manipulates them the entire time. The Search for Happiness by Nandor, played by Kayvan Novak, is another fun theme explored to great lengths this season. Every scene with Colin Robinson, the energy vampire, played by Mark Proksch, is a treat. And how Natasha Demetriou puts up with these ridiculous characters as Nadja is beyond me. But it's the body performance by Matt Berry as Laszlo that has me coming back every time. Like all great sitcoms of the past, it's the complex chemistry of the cast that makes What We Do in the Shadows work so well. Squid Game is streaming on Netflix. It premiered September 17th, 2021. Yeah, I know, it's a nationwide phenomenon, but even though Squid Game is derivative as hell, it's still made for some compelling serial storytelling. The elaborate games, the sad sack stories of the contestants, The intricate way the game is put together and the way they all stab each other in the backs made me look past the similarities to The Hunger Games and Battle Royale before it. I could have done without the ponderous last episode that felt like it would never end, but all in all, this was breezy, fun, and brutal action/horror. Sometimes going along with what's popular isn't a bad thing, and with more seasons on the way, I have to admit, I'll be there for them. Is it about communism, socialism, democracy? I really don't care. I was simply entertained, and sometimes that's okay. Chucky is streaming on the USA Network and ScyFy. It premiered October 12th, 2021. I didn't think he could do it, but Don Mancini brought Chucky to the small screen, and it's actually pretty damn good. I still think the kid actors are the weakest part of the series, and the lead kid resorts to his squishy face way too many times for almost every reaction. But the story of our favorite possessed doll serial killer and basically everyone he's ever faced and lived is rollicking fun, from the devious lead-in music incorporating new imagery every time to the flashbacks, which I just found out stars Brad Dourif's daughter Fiona playing a young Dourif. Okay, sometimes I'm a little slow on the uptake. While I feel much of the innovative doll effects shown in the other movies have been simplified for Chucky, the little guy looks as good as ever, and Mancini is putting him through interesting, non-preachy yet topical twists and turns. These situations, like Chucky going trick-or-treating or surviving a fire just barely, are predicaments handled through wonderful character realization by Mancini and Dourif. Chucky is proof that you can still get a lot of mileage out of those old 80s slashers. Finally, there's The Silent Sea. It's streaming on Netflix. It premiered December 24th, 2021. This one snuck in there right at the end. It's a tension-filled sci-fi horror story that is, again, very derivative of other sci-fi horror films, specifically Alien and its knockoffs that occurred during the late 80s like Leviathan and Deep Star 6. In the future, water is a limited commodity, and people will do anything to get some. A science team is quickly assembled to head to the moon to recover a top-secret something and investigate why the last team sent up there all died. Stay with me, because this all has something to do with the water crisis. While I found a lot of this series predictable, especially once the big secret is dropped, I still think that there are some harrowing scenes of utter what-the-fuckery going on. For example, when one of the astronauts start drowning in their own fluids and shooting water out of every orifice. It's not a pretty sight. Strange body horror and claustrophobic space tension follow in this well-made, if not familiar, sci-fi horror series. So what horror have you binged this year? Have I missed any of the good ones? Let me know down in the comments. That'll be it for today. Please chime in down below in the comments and let me know how on the nose or mind-numbingly wrong I am, or you can counter with your own review. So guys, you know how YouTube works. I'd love to be able to dedicate more time to this channel. I'm not monetized yet, so if you want to help me out, remember to hit all the pertinent bells and whistles down below. Want some spooky comics to read? I have 2 new horror comic book trade paperbacks you should look out for. Both Gravetrancers and Pirouette, collecting never-before-published issues, can be found in only the finest of comic book shops. If you're looking for written reviews, you can find them on my website, mlmillerwrites.com. If you really want to show your support, I also have a Patreon page at mlmiller. Look for the link to my Patreon page down below. Thank you so much for your time, and take care.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're doomed. You're doomed. Live the life that you are meant to be. Live inside that reality.